And hello there, it's Dr. Brenda, sociologist, financial coach, full-time RVer, traveling the country with my three cats. Hey, please subscribe below if you already subscribed. Thank you so much. All right, now today I was going to bring you a really special treat. I am in North Carolina, Pisgah Forest area, DuPont State Forest. Great hiking. I really love this area. Closest town is called Brevard. It's a smaller town, and they've really done some great things downtown. So I really enjoyed checking it out. They also have white squirrels. Yes, white squirrels. Cats are playing. So if you hear some tunnel noise, cats are playing. And so Brevard does have white squirrels, not albinos. Actually, that's their fur. So anyway. All right, I stopped at the visitor center and I saw all these brochures and information on blue zones, okay? And they also had, I asked about it and they gave me a copy of this. This is a National Geographic special edition on blue zones. Well, it turns out Brevard is working to become a certified blue zone community. And so I went down, they have an office and arranged for an interview with staff there, but due to an illness we had to cancel the interview. So kind of bummed about that, but I am going to bring you some Blue Zone stuff because I want to take this apart and see how we can create some of those elements into a full-time RV life, right? So this is about creating a community that makes it easier to eat healthier and to move more and to be social, be part of a community, okay? So this is, if you don't know what a blue zone is, I'm going to back up because these are some communities in the world where there is a high proportion of the population that lives up to 100 and more, and they're really free of a lot of the things that we deal with in our modern society, heart disease and diabetes. You know, those things are really absent in those societies. They're living longer. They are vital. They have energy. And so some researchers went into these communities to find out, you know, what's the secret? How are they living to 100? And this, in some of these communities, it is both men and women, which is really interesting because a lot of times women have a greater longevity than the men. But you know what? There are a couple of these communities where it's a 1-to-1 ratio. You got to and so it applies across the board. So I want to back up a bit here and tell you which communities are that they studied, that they talked about. Ikaria, Greece, Okinawa, Japan, which has one of the highest longevity rates. A region, I'm going to mispronounce this, Ogliastra region in Sardinia. Loma Linda, California. The secret there is there's a high proportion of Seventh-day Adventists who tend to have healthier lifestyles. And then Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. So those were the blue zones it was interesting because I did a little bit more research and I thought, well, why are they called blue zones? And it's because the research team had a map and looked at the demographics and the life expectancy and all these other factors, and they had a blue pen and they circled those communities that just popped out. So they became blue zone communities. All right. So yeah, so much for the, so take the mystery out of that right away. Okay, so there are 9 things that they found that are common in most of these communities. They call them the Power 9. Number 1 is the people move naturally. They're not going to a gym. They're hiking. They're walking from place to place. They're farming. They're sheep herding. They are out in nature moving naturally. Second is the purpose. People say they have something to live for outside of work. So that is common. Number 3, downshifting. So they know how to relax. So they'll take a portion of the day and just like, you know what? I'm going to take a break. And so Okinawans take a few moments a day to remember their ancestors. Seventh-day Adventists pray. Icarians take a nap. Sardinians enjoy a happy hour. So they know how to downshift. The fourth item, and I love this, and I'd heard about this years ago, but it's called the 80% rule, and this also comes from Japan's Okinawan Blue Zone. And people remind themselves to stop eating when their stomachs are 80% full. Can you imagine that? Can you do that? 80% full. So we all know it takes, well, many of us know it takes about 20 minutes for your food for your brain to register that you've eaten. So 80% full. And they use a phrase, hari hachi bu, to remind them to keep it at 80%. Number 5 is there is a plant slant. So you've got vegetables. Beans make up a heavy component of a lot of the diets. Meat, very small proportion, maybe 5% or less. Number 6, wine at 5. Wine. So they'll have a glass or two with dinner and or with friends. So there is some wine consumption. Number 7, the right tribe. Okinawans, for example, create moais, and again, excuse my pronunciation, but they're groups of 5 friends who are committed to each other for life. So having really close, lifelong friends. Number 8 is community. So what is common is for community members to go to, in these cases, faith-based services, but you can think of how you can integrate, how you can become part of a community on a regular basis. Number 9 is loved ones first. Okay, so it's about nurturing and loving their children, and it's about the children taking care of the elderly. A lot of extended families, and I can relate to this. I grew up on a farm. My grandparents were in a little trailer right next to the farmhouse, so I grew up with my grandparents. That's pretty hard to recreate these days, but that is common. So now you've got some basics of what blue zones are, where they are, and what they're about. Now, we live in RVs. Well, I live in an RV, and a lot of folks who are out there full-time in RVing. So some of these things we can adopt, and other things are much more difficult. So there's a lot more information on blue zones. I will add a link in the description if you want to do some more research. Some of the things that we can integrate, the 2 biggies, of course, are food and movement. So, I've been trying to do better on my eating, and I've trying to eat more vegetables. It is difficult in an RV. I have a small RV refrigerator. It is just me. I also do intermittent fasting, so it's hard to find the storage space, and it is hard to eat the food before it gets old. But nevertheless, there are definitely things that we can all do on the food front. That 80% rule. Okay, no matter what you're eating, slow down and stop before you're full. And I know that that is so contrary to a lot of American culture, where it's like, oh, I paid for this and I got to gobble it up and I'm starving and I eat, and then we feel lousy afterward because our brain is finally caught up and said, oh, what did you do? You ate too much. So that is definitely a practice that we can do, that hari hachi bu. Now, the other thing they talk about with these cultures is that food is to be celebrated. Now, I practice intermittent fasting. I've done a zillion diets. I am not going to go back on a diet that tells me what I can and what I cannot eat. I want to be smart about my decisions. But I do want to get into a practice of celebrating food. So one of the challenges in the RV is also, especially if you don't have the hookup If you don't have the full hookup, you got to really conserve the water. So sometimes we're like, I don't really want to wash my dishes, so I'm going to just eat out of whatever I've nuked in the microwave or whatever's in the refrigerator, and we don't take the time, I don't take the time to prepare it on a plate and sit down away from the computer, away from my iPhone, away from my iPad, and just sit and appreciate the food. That is something that we can all incorporate. So stop eating out of the plastic containers in the refrigerator. You know, prepare, make it a celebration. Really think about how food is there to nourish you. And intermittent fasting is part of this. And so again, you know, I'm doing pretty well with that, and that is something that you absolutely can incorporate into your RV life. The other piece of information that I thought was really interesting is that somehow in America we've been taught that there is breakfast food, right? Cereal, oatmeal, eggs, toast. And that's really unusual. When you look at the rest of the world, Okinawa, they're having miso soup. You know, your breakfast is your biggest meal if you do eat breakfast, and it can be whatever it is that you may can be yesterday's dinner. It can be a full plate of, it can be a salad. So that's the other piece of rethinking what breakfast means. So those are the types of things that I think would be pretty easy to implement in the RV lifestyle. The other piece of this is movement. And I don't go to a gym. I can't go to a gym. I'm moving every week, every couple weeks. But I am out here hiking. And if I can kayak, I'm kayaking. If I can rent a bike, I'm biking. Movement. I mean, yesterday I did over 13 miles hiking. That was like an extreme for me. But movement feels good. It is so much easier to move naturally in an RV. So we have that working for us. Another thing we got working for us, most of us have working for us. So I do work in the RV. I still work. I've got my financial coaching business, Gutsy Women Finances. But I have flexibility, and most RVers have flexibility. We can downshift. So, boy, there's nothing like a nice, 45-minute nap. Things get a little bit tiring at 3 o'clock, and I can rest. I can open up a book, and so we got that going for us. RVers, I think, get an A+ in downshifting, especially if you are retired. Some of the things that might be more challenging now, a lot of us are out here, and I think we do have purpose, whatever that may be. I mean, I can't wait to wake up and see what the day is going to present. Yes, I have my business, but it's also being out in nature and living a very joyful life. I do have purpose, and I think a lot of RVers are out here for that personal growth and for the love of nature and for the love of travel. So we got that going for us too. Things that are more difficult is that community. Okay, so some of us, I know I've become friends, Facebook friends, and have been able to meet some people, but that group of MOAs, those social circles, in the United States, I mean, we are very geographically mobile. Most of us don't live where we grew up. Most of our friends don't live where we grew up. So having lifelong friends is, I think, a challenge for all of us. But for RVers, it can be definitely more difficult. So you can find some like-minded people, but I'm traveling alone most of the time, and that can be a challenge. The other piece of that is community, to belong to part of a community. And I get a little bit of that when I winter. I've wintered in the same place, South Padre Island in Texas, for 2 winters in a row and gotten to know some people and feel like I am a little part of the community there. I also volunteer during those 3 months that I'm trying to stay warm. So those are possibilities for you if you RV, you know, that you can still volunteer, can still feel like you're part of the community. So, you know, if you're watching this and you've got a house, you have a community, check out some of these communities and the things that they're doing. A lot of these are small changes. Some of them require more infrastructure. So I know Brevard, they're doing a rails to trails, working on taking defunct trail, you know, rail system and turning it into a bike and hiking trail. Those are really cool things. I can say, like, I was in Charleston, and that is, you know, if you had a bike, you couldn't bike outside of that park because there was traffic, scary stuff. You couldn't hike, couldn't walk, and not pedestrian friendly. So some of these cities will really have to do something with the infrastructure to make it easier to walk. But a lot of the grocery stores and the restaurants that are part of this program, part of the community, they're making little shifts. So in this magazine, there was one grocer talked about just switching out what's, you know, you go to the checkout counter and there's usually a refrigerator filled with all kinds of sugary or octane high energy drinks, and you know, so you know, moving that to water and healthier selections, how that made a difference. Instead of having all of the candies up front, maybe you have some energy bars, and so there are small things. The whole goal is to make it easier to be healthy. Here, going through some of these communities, their grocery store is an American Dollar store, and I remember in one of the parks in Florida, so I had to drive quite a ways, and that was the grocery store. And you know, a woman is buying foods for her grandkids, and you got bottles and bottles of Mountain Dew and junk food and candy. Everything is processed. That is not food, my friends. I know that it gives you a high and can taste good, but that's not food. The other thing that these folks do is their liquid intake is water, tea, coffee, or wine. So they, you know, there's no Diet Coke, there's no sugary Coke, there's no soda. So those are things that you know, you're going against the grain in most communities when you eat healthy. So this is about a mind shift. It's about a culture shift. It is about making changes in a community to make people healthier. And they have the data to prove it. So, you know, in terms of people stopping smoking, people losing weight, people getting healthier, the benefits to the healthcare system are in the millions in these little communities. So yeah, so I'm a big fan of blue zones, and you know, I don't believe in any specific diet, but if you can go plant-based and toss in some intermittent fasting, and limit all of that processed stuff and move more, you're going to be doing a whole lot better. So that's my take on blue zones. And you know, you're out there RVing, you can take elements of this blue zone concept, integrate it into your RV life. Hey, all right, that's it for today. Hope you found that helpful, and let me know what you're doing to be healthier, to move more, to maybe incorporate some of those blue zone practices. Till next time, hope you guys are well. Bye-bye.